On this episode of Cox Connections, since 2008, the Together We Can Foundation has been helping create positive outcomes for at-risk youth who are transitioning into adulthood. Learn what challenges these young people in Hampton Roads face and how the foundation makes a difference in their lives. Also, you know the Virginia Beach SPCA helps find homes for companion animals, but did you know this organization also visits over 28,000 school children annually through their educational programs? We'll take a look at how the SPCA helps to make our community more humane, one child at a time. And the Boys and Girls Clubs of Southeast Virginia has been in our community since 1919, helping our children thrive and become better citizens. Today we will explore the different programs offered to our area youngsters and we'll meet the 2014 Youth of the Year winner. Stay tuned, Cox Connections is next. Hello and welcome to Cox Connections. I'm your host, Gary McCullum, Senior Vice President and General Manager for Cox, Virginia. For 6 years, the Together We Can Foundation has been improving outcomes for at-risk youth who are in transition to an independent adult life and the workforce in Hampton Roads. This group strives to ensure that these young people are better prepared, more connected, and have a greater sense of optimism about their future. Here to talk with us about how the Together We Can Foundation is making a difference is Executive Director Tom Crockett. Tom, thanks for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Let me just start. Tell us exactly who are these young people and that your organization is helping.
Well, there's a phenomena called disconnected youth, which are young people, they can be as young as 14 and even up to 24, who are unemployed, not in school, disconnected from social structures and family in a lot of cases. There are estimates about 38,000 young people across Hampton Roads that fall into that category.
38,000 youth that are just,
38,000.
as you say, disconnected.
Yeah, it's about 14% of our youth population.
And these are kids who may have, how do they get into this situation?
Well, there are identified risk factors for these kids. Being in foster care during your teenage years, being involved with the court system in some way, having a dropout, a high school dropout, high poverty, or experiencing family homelessness when you're a teen. All those are kind of risk factors for kids just becoming disconnected from society in a way.
So 38,000 young people disconnected, as you say. I mean, obviously there are huge challenges as these children move into adulthood. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, one of the things that we find is that that there are a series of maybe hard skills that you need to develop to have a career, that you need to know how to do specific things. But what counts for success are a lot of soft skills that these kids never get. They never learn how work works. They never learn, this is a generation that because of the economic downturn, a lot of them are not getting the opportunity to work and have those summer jobs that you and I probably had when we were young. They're not getting practice at working, and it's hard for them to get a job and keep a job. They just are lacking a lot of the, I would call them, success skills.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about the economic downturn. If you're 35, 40 and you lose your job, you've gained some skills. But in this case,
exactly,
if you've never gained the skills, this is really a challenge.
Yeah, and that's why it's not so simple as just saying, well, we'll solve the problem by finding them a job, or we'll solve the homelessness problem by getting them an apartment, because they don't have the skills to manage money, to manage an apartment and do those things.
So what are some of the programs that the foundation that you're taking on in order to help these young folks?
Well, we started with a program called our Life Skills Portfolio class, and this was all about career identification. They develop a resume, they develop a professional presentation portfolio, evidence of what they're capable of doing. It's a way of presenting themselves, and we talk a lot about what's your personal brand? How do you want people to see you? And understanding that when you are branding yourself, it's a 24/7 thing. By the time you figure out that someone you're with may be able to help you, or do something positive for you, if you wait till then to turn your brand on, it's too late.
And you also have a smart money course.
Exactly.
Talk a little bit about that.
Another area where kids really are challenged is how money works, how banks work, how savings, and we do things like walk kids through an apartment rental agreement, and then ask them, after they have a chance to study that rental agreement, we'll say, okay, so your roommate comes home with a kitten. Can you keep it? And you have to tell me yes or no based on where in the contract. So that they get a sense of this thing that they're signing has implications for them down the road.
And you have this unique Equine Youth Challenge. Talk a little bit about that.
That's a new program in the past year where we bring kids out to a farm in Smithfield that works with rescued horses that are taken from the Bureau of Land Management, Mustangs from the Outer Banks of North Carolina. These are wild horses, and the kids actually learn to train those horses, ride them, work with them, and it teaches them huge things about self-respect, self-identity. One of my favorite stories is watching a young woman, maybe 90 pounds soaking wet, in the middle of a pen with a horse, and she's supposed to get that horse to move in one direction, stop, and move in another direction without touching it, just by voice. And she's standing there frozen, and the horse is standing there staring at her. And the instructor says, Kay-May, what do you want to have happen right now? She said, I don't know. She said, well, that's what's happening, because the horse doesn't know either. But she came out, she got focused, she went back in, and she was able to make that horse do that. That's a huge lesson in how important it is.
So you've also created a publication that will help get this information out to some of these young folks. Talk a little bit about that.
Exactly. We've had a lot of success with our programs. We've on average, about 75% of at-risk kids ever graduate from high school. 93% of kids who've taken one or more of our classes actually are graduating high school. So we're showing statistical success, and we put a lot of the information into a guide for young people, which is, we call it Get Set, a smart guide to adult life. But it starts with the questions they have, like, when will I be an adult? Yeah. Well, that depends on which definition you're talking about. There's a legal definition, biological, social, financial, behavioral.
Well, I can see how that will be beneficial. We only have about a minute left. There are people who are going to be watching this. I mean, and really, there are two general audiences. One, you're going to have young folks out there watching this who may be in this. What's the message for them? And then the other audience, are there folks out there who could potentially help your organization move forward? What's the message to both of those audiences?
Well, because, like most nonprofits, financial assistance is always helpful. Our website, you can donate.
And we'll show that website.
But if you have a church or an organization that you'd like to have me come in and not only talk about the guide, but talk about our Mentors Guide, this helps adults use this to work with young people. So if you have a youth program at your church or in your organization, we can come in and actually give you some skills for working with those kids.
Well, Tom, thank you very much for all you're doing for these young folks. I like to say they're not at risk, they're high return, and what you're doing, we clearly can get a high return on the future of these young folks. So thank you and what you're doing at your foundation.
Thank you very much.
Reading a book to a dog? And is there a doctor, or rather a veterinarian, in the house? Find out what's happening and helping our children at the Virginia Beach SPCA. Stay tuned for more Cox Connections.